Well, hey there, everybody. Good afternoon. This is Nate Gustafson coming to you from beautiful Denver, Colorado, and in June of 2019. And so whether you're viewing this with us live right now or whether you're catching this in a recorded fashion in days, weeks, or months later, I hope wherever you find us today that your day is going well. And thank you for taking out the time to take a look at some hope today, to have hopefully a hopeful conversation on hope at home. And so we really do want this to be an encouraging time for you so that you will hope for a better tomorrow and realize that it begins at home. So today we're going to be looking at hope at home. And so I'd invite you to, whether you're catching us live and want to put this into the chat box or just think about this for a moment. What was your home like when you were a kid? Was your home the peaceful oasis in the midst of a chaotic storm? Was your home like Grand Central Station where everyone was just racing in and out, in and out, in and out? Were you more like a bed and breakfast that you felt like there was always someone staying? There was always friends or family members at your home? Or was your home like the emergency room where whoever might be in crisis or trouble, they came rushing through your front door to find some attention? Or if it was something else, what would you say your home was like when you were a kid? Feel free to either, again, put that in the chat box or just jot that down or think about that for a moment. What was your home like when you were a kid? Today, whether you're watching this again in person live or whether you're catching this from a recording, we all have some things in common. At some point in time, we had a home, whether that was a temporary home, whether that was a long-standing home, whether that was many, many homes that you lived in throughout the years. But even more than that, we all have something in common, that you wouldn't be watching this if you didn't have a desire to make a difference in the world. The folks who typically join us for our Hope Connection webinars and the training and the support that we provide they're caregivers, they're teachers, they're counselors and clergy, they're people who volunteer their precious time and energy and resources to make the world a better place, whether that's walking dogs at the Humane Society, whether that's volunteering for a hospice at a hospital, whether that's playing bingo at a nursing home, whether that's reading with children in a school, or whether that's just volunteering with your kids' Boy Scout or Girl Scout troop. Whatever the case might be, whether you're business professionals or healthcare workers or educators or rocket scientists, whatever you are in your profession isn't necessarily that important at this point in time. It's what we have in common is that we all share a heart to make a difference. Because truly, home is where the heart is. Home is wherever you spend your time, your energy. You make those loving connections with other people. It doesn't mean that we all come from mansions or we might have studio apartments or we might have something in between. But truly, home is where the heart is. And so wherever your heart finds its home at, or whoever you find your home with, that's who we want to concentrate on today in terms of how do we advance hope at home? How do we advance hope in the space where we feel like we are most at home, as well as with the people who our heart is most intimately connected to? So how are you really? If we were to be honest today, just completely honest, not the typical, oh, I'm fine, or everything's great, or isn't it a lovely day outside kind of response, how are you really? What's the state of your heart and what's the state of your home today? You might answer that in terms of being busy or tired or stressed. If you're being honest, maybe you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, or maybe if you're being honest, maybe you've dipped into the self-medication cabinet just a little too much lately, whether that's an extra pint of Ben & Jerry's, whether that's those romantic comedies that you get yourself just kind of lost in, or whether that's, a little too many beers on the weekend, or whatever the case might be. I've heard it said so many times from people who are just amazing caregivers that they just feel like they're just go, go, go all the time. They're caregivers at home. They're caregivers at work. They're caregivers at the lunch break, breakout space. They're saying to me all the time, I'll sleep when I die. So how are you really today? What's the state of your heart and what's the state of your home? Because truthfully, looks can be deceiving. On the outside, it may appear that you've got everything together. And I'm guilty of this myself. I can put on the best face to show everybody that things are great. You know, my appearance is up to date, my job skills are up to date, my family life might be looking like it's all fine and dandy, but looks can be deceiving where all too often things are just a complete mess on the inside. And that's why today I really want us to concentrate on how can we advance hope at home when things may look great on the outside, or even things may not look that great on the outside, but they're still holding up pretty well. But on the inside, so many of us who care with everything in us, our insides are a wreck. Our family life is a mess. Our relationships with our family, whether it's our parents, whether it's our brothers and sisters, whether it's with our children, our grandchildren, so many times our relationships or our inner motives, our inner attitudes are just a train wreck, just a devastating mess, even if everything on the outside can look pretty well. And I blame a lot of this, that the enemy of having an impact of hope at home, the enemy of that is heart disease. And I'm not talking about congestive heart failure or clogged arteries or whether you're pumping at an irregular rate. I'm talking about the heart disease that so often goes undetected. And that's the heart disease of your home or your inner life. And we're going to pay attention to heart disease and realize that it shows up, the symptoms of this heart disease show up in 4 different ways. The first way is that we can be diagnosed with a racing heart. Secondly, we can be diagnosed with a tired heart. Thirdly, we might be diagnosed with a broken heart. And last of all, we might be diagnosed with an angry heart. So I'd encourage you, if you're up to it in the chat box, or whether you want to jot this down on a piece of paper or journal along the way here, or even say out loud because I can't hear you, just say which of these types of heart disease, which of these symptoms of inner heart disease that robs our hope at home, would you say is plaguing you today? Are you guilty of that racing heart that just feels like you're on the treadmill of life and you just can't get off? Do you feel like you're just completely exhausted and carrying around the weight of the world has just got you so tired that you could sleep if just given 1 minute to close your eyes? Or do you feel like you're suffering from a broken heart, maybe a broken heart of betrayal, maybe a broken heart of loss in your life? Maybe you've gone through some significant death or trials in your personal life that feels like it's preventing you from having any sort of hope at home. Or maybe it's just a lot of anger, just for whatever reason, feeling robbed, feeling persecuted, feeling unjustly ignored for the contributions that you're making out there. And it's just got you a little ticked off. So whatever that is, we have to pay attention to these symptoms of heart disease that so often go overlooked and unnoticed, because those are truly the enemy of having hope at home. So in order to advance hope at home, we must combat the heart disease that's keeping us from having that hope at home. And hope at home truly is just with ourselves, with those that are closest to us, in that space that is just truly sacred, that sacred space, that closest part of our lives that we would consider home. So in order to combat that heart disease, we have to be at home spiritually, we have to be at home personally, and we have to be at home relationally. So we're going to take a look at what it means and what it looks like to be at home, or to be comfortable in our own space and life, our own home spiritually. So again, spiritually is not talking about necessarily an organized religion. Some people express their spirituality in that way, but spirituality is something broader than that. It's broader than the name of the church or the synagogue that you go to, broader than the spiritual community that you belong to. It's what connects you to something greater than yourself. It's what gives your life context and meaning. And so by that, we also recognize that we can all face a lot of spiritual stress in our lives. Anytime you've gone through a significant loss, trauma, a health crisis, anytime you felt relationally isolated or disconnected or felt abandoned, that's spiritual stress. That's impacting that aspect of your heart. And it could happen from any one of those symptoms of heart disease, like a broken heart or like an angry heart or the tired heart. It can impact you spiritually. That spiritual life force within you can take a beating because of that heart disease, because of the enemy of heart disease. Your spirit, your soul might be like the psalmist that said, "Why, my soul, are you so downcast? Why so disturbed within me?" Have you ever caught yourself just either physically or verbally talking to yourself or thinking those very words like, "Gosh, Nate, what is your problem? Why are you just so out of it? Why are you so down? Why are you so just distant? Life just doesn't seem to have any purpose or meaning right now. What's this all about?" That's spiritual stress. That's that heart disease that can impact us spiritually. And we don't want to be negative in the spiritual realm of our life. We want to be filled with hope in the spiritual realm of our life. We just need to follow this advice of this picture. We just want to breathe and truly believe in our heart and soul that everything's going to be okay. So how do we get there? How do we be at home spiritually? First of all, I think the spiritual side of life really allows us the benefit of being on a path of discovery by asking the hard questions that we so typically run away from. No one wants to just sit with and wrestle with the uncomfortable nature of these hard questions like, what am I living for? What's my purpose? What's really real in this world around me? And while you're wrestling with that, you can begin to practice some things in your life that can restore and help you be at home spiritually. Things like beauty, nature, other spiritual practices. Like I heard of a gentleman who lives up against a national forest boundary in the mountains of Colorado near Buena Vista. He's got Mount Princeton, just one of the most beautiful picturesque backdrops in his backyard, literally. And so he says he just goes for a sacred walk just to practice quiet, to practice silence and stillness, just to try to restore his heart and his soul and to be at home spiritually. Sometimes people do this through specific practices like meditation, prayer, getting involved with reading sacred literature, whether that's the Bible or whether that's other scriptures or other literature that is from a sacred context. But ultimately, it's about stopping. It's about getting quiet, and it's about listening. To be at home spiritually means that we are truly tuning into that part of us that's well below the surface. It's that part of the iceberg that you just can't always see, but we know it's there. We can touch it. We can feel it. We can sense it. And we can do that through everyday spiritual experiences, ESE, everyday spiritual experiences, whether it's a sacred walk, whether it's a time of personal discovery or journaling or prayer or music, whatever that might be. The path to restoring our heart and our soul, the path of being at home spiritually, begins with everyday spiritual experiences. Secondly, in order to advance hope at home, we must combat the heart disease by learning how to be at home personally. And so when I mean personal, I'm talking about just getting comfortable in our own skin. So whether you want to call that self-awareness, whether you want to call that enlightenment, whether you want to call that just a sense of peace, whatever that is for you, it's just being at home personally with your own personal space. And so heart disease, whether it's the racing heart, the tired heart, the broken heart, or the angry heart, it can impact you in so many ways. Specifically, I think of the devastation of the racing and the tired heart has an impact on us, mind, body, and spirit. We talked about spirit. Now let's think about this in terms of just the mind and the body. You know, we live so much in this day and age of just the constant state of exhaustion. I don't know anyone who, just if they're being honest, wouldn't say, I don't get enough sleep, I don't get enough rest, sun up to sun down, push, go, go, go. And it affects us. It just helps, it keeps us from being at home in our personal world of our heart and our soul, our mind, body, spirit. And so, we want to consider that. We want to, realize that the tired heart, the racing heart, that's just preventing us from having hope. It's preventing us from looking forward to a better tomorrow. When, if we take a look at our task for the day, if we took a look at our calendar, if we took a look at our notifications on our smartphone, we'd have this sense of dread, this sense of exhaustion just from looking at everything that we thought we could get done in a 24-hour period. So ask yourself, who do you know, who do I know whose spirit is filled with overflowing joy, peace, and hope? Who can I rub shoulders with? Who can I learn from? Who can I listen to a podcast from? Who can I watch a TED Talk from? Who can I meet for coffee? Who can I go to that can help me learn how to be at home personally? Because those are the people that you want to rub up against. Those are the people that you want to discover. So let's look at some personal practices to being at home in our personal space. Researchers are getting into the health benefits, the mental benefits, the life benefits of just taking a pause and taking a break. We've kind of thrown out the idea of the old coffee break. When I was a kid growing up, my grandparents were farmers, and it was just like a religious tradition that every day at 10 and 3, they had quote-unquote coffee. And that meant that everyone came in from the fields, everyone came in, or that's when your friends or your relatives from the other farms and the other neighbors would come by, and there was always a fresh pot of coffee. Grandma always had fresh baked cookies or the best that she could find at the store. And it was a time for break. It was a time to just be at home with one another. We paused. I remember that was the best part. I was introduced to Grandpa cookies. I wasn't old enough to know any different, but Grandpa cookies were vanilla wafers. And he would pour me a cup of coffee, and I was about 3 or 4 years old, so take it or leave it. I think it might have been decaf so that Mom wouldn't have to deal with a 4-year-old bouncing off the walls from having coffee. Now I'd dunk Nilla wafer after Nilla wafer after Nilla wafer in the coffee until I had my fill, and then I would drink the coffee after it had cooled off. And, I'd put in plenty of sugar to make it real sweet. But that time of going out to the farm for coffee was just so amazing. I loved it so much. And the practices and the research are backing that up now. The mental energy that comes from just breathing deep, from closing your eyes, whether it's just for 2 minutes at regular intervals, whether that's at 8 a.m., 10 a.m., noon, or that's just at 10 and 3 in your day. Whatever that might be, just taking a break, just to be silent, just to be in our own skin. Maybe you're not one who feels comfortable in your own skin. Maybe for whatever reason you feel very anxious or nervous or distressed about anyone who suggests that you should be silent and be alone. Well, maybe that's just an invitation to greater self-awareness, greater self-discovery. I recently, in the last 6 months, have really enjoyed reading up on and discovering the ancient practice of the Enneagram, which is 9 types of being, and each point on this interesting diagram is a number. And you might say, oh, I'm a 1 with a 9 wing, or I'm a 8 with a 7 wing, or in my healthier relating patterns, I'm a 3, or in my negative relating patterns, I'm an 8. And all that means something. And I would highly recommend the book by Ian Morgan Crum. I can't think of it right now. The Road Back to You. That's it. The Road Back to You, discovering the ancient practice of the Enneagram. Whether it's personality discoveries like the Myers-Briggs, whether it's like a practice like the Enneagram, whatever it is, I would strongly encourage you to continue down the road of self-awareness, self-discovery, and even develop a personal practice called the Examine, another ancient practice where the spiritually mature would stop at the end of their day, and they would, whether that's just in a reflective journaling mode, whether that's in a prayerful mode, they would just examine. They would look back and they would see where their heart felt most alive, see where their life was headed on the trajectory that they felt most represented, where they wanted to be personally and spiritually and relationally. And so I'd encourage you, examine your day. Sometimes I'll even just use the acronym REST. I'll think back in my day and think about relationships. How did they go during that day? I'll think about the E for emotional state of being. Where was I high? Where was I low? Where was I engaged? Where was I withdrawn? And then I'll think about the S for spiritual, because not only is spiritual a part of this, but again, it's the mind, body, spirit that all integrate together. And so to truly be at home, that's why we started with spiritual and have now gone on to the personal, because they all work together. And then finally, just time, just what's going on with my time? Where was I present to my day-to-day moments? Where was I distant and absent from it? What was a practical and efficient use of my time? Where was I being just way too inefficient, way too distracted on tasks and projects and things that had very little to do with what I really needed to be doing during the day? So I'd encourage you to be at home personally to combat that heart disease of the broken heart, the tired heart, the racing heart, the angry heart. Start taking a break, pause, have a moment of silence. Just get away by yourself, even if it's for half a day. Just take a picnic lunch, go sit in a park bench somewhere, just to be with your own self, be there personally. And then examine your day, examine your week, examine your heart. Just take a look at these things, because that's going to help us advance hope at home when we're taking care of our heart, when we're battling this heart disease, because then out of the overflow of a rich and vibrant and fulfilled life, we can care and connect and companion so much better with our loved ones, with our parents, with our children, with our grandparents, with those special friends that are a part of our life. So in order to advance hope at home, we must combat the heart disease. And the third aspect of this is to be at home relationally. Let's take a look at our relational life. Heart disease can impact us relationally. I think that this world is just overcome with people with relational heart disease. I feel like I was could have been diagnosed at a very young age with relational heart disease, and it's still a growing edge for me to be at peace and to be at home in healthy relationships. So many times I was reading of the studies that are just the percentages are over the top with the percentages of physicians and healthcare providers who are bringing their burnout to their marriages. They're bringing their burnout to their family life, and the signs are just all over the place. They're distant with their spouse. They're choosing the lengthy hours of clinical work or hospital work over time at home. They're neglecting time to just have simple meals at home with their family, which leads to child and teen health crises. And even in other aspects, whether it's education, there's always one more event at the school to go to. There's always one more game to show up and be supportive with your kids. In the church world, there's always one more task to do. There's always one more person to call. There's always one more person to visit in the hospital or pray with. Whatever that might be, that's a pursuit that you have to really closely examine with your own life and with those that are closest to you to see if those are impacting you negatively in the relational realm of your life. Another aspect of this is I think so many times we're not being our authentic and true selves, but instead we're kind of putting on the mask, we're putting on the imposter that prevents us from having a healthy relationship, because we don't want to trust that if someone really sees our true colors, we don't want to trust and believe that they'll still accept us, that they'll still love us for who we are, warts and all. And maybe because you had a life of broken promises, broken trust, of relational struggles, whether they were abusive or not, the hurt for your heart might have happened a long time ago. And so you might be still wrestling with that and struggling with that. That relational heart disease is hard to overcome. And that's why it's part of advancing hope at home, because those are the most important relationships. Children, parents, loved ones, best friends, business partner who you went into business together because you share such a love and passion for the same activity or for the same cause. Whatever the case might be, in order to advance hope at home, we have got to combat these heart disease, these symptoms of heart disease, because they're ruining us relationally. So how do we do that? How do we be at home relationally? I think we have to get to the point where we realize that you do not complete me. I cannot be completed through another person. I can't expect my spouse or my children or my parents to complete me. If I feel like I have something missing in my life or some part of me that is not whole, then I should not be expecting someone else to plug that hole for me. Another aspect is I just think we're so poor at just unplugging together. I know in our house we have to just physically force ourselves to unplug at times, whether that's shutting off the TV, turning off our phones, making sure that we, do things like playing a game together, going for a walk, talking at dinner. It's so much easier just to pull out the TV trays. It's so much easier just to look at the computer screen. It's so much easier just to watch one more video or one more show sometimes, because it takes effort to connect to one another. It takes effort to really and truly combat all these heart diseases. And so one of the things we can do, besides realizing that, another person does not complete us and realizing that we need to unplug together, is get back to the old love languages. Maybe you're not familiar with Gary Chapman's book, The 5 Love Languages, but I would highly, highly recommend it. As your closest people in your life, see if you can figure out what's their love language. How can I communicate to them in a way that accurately and truly and authentically communicates how much I care for them and how much I want them to be a part of my life? And what can I share to them about my own love language so that they can help communicate better to me? The love languages have helped millions upon millions upon millions of people, and they've even now advanced into the workplace. So how can I, realize that words of affirmation are really the key to connecting with those closest people in my life, even at work? You might have a couple of colleagues that you feel are really, truly people that you are more like family with, and you want to make sure that those are the people that you keep those strong ties with, those strong connections with. So, learn the love languages, and then finally, it's simple, but it's so profoundly effective. Have family dinner times, family meal times together, whether it's breakfast for some families, whether it's dinner, whatever the case might be. The studies also show that one of the most simplest and profound impacts of children and teenage health is having family time together, having family dinners together. So it's a chance to connect, it's a chance to unplug, it's a chance to be at home together relationally with one another. So in order to advance hope at home, we must combat the heart disease that's keeping us from that hope at home. Whether, again, it's the racing heart, just the go, 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 whether it's the broken heart, feeling like there's been so many losses and trials and tribulations, whether it's the sad heart or the mad heart, or whatever condition your heart is in, we have got to deal with the heart disease, folks. If we do not deal with the heart disease, our ability to advance hope in our community, whether that's through our job, whether it's through our Girl Scout or Boy Scout troop, whether that's through our volunteer activities or our faith community, whatever that might be, those are activities, those opportunities are going to be severely limited because we're still carrying heart disease with us. So let's deal with the heart disease and get healthy so that we can advance hope at home, and then we'll be able to move on to advancing hope in the community. So right now, I would encourage you, again, jot down or put in the chat box or just say it out loud. What are the most common obstacles or hurdles that you face in the mission to advance hope at home? I'll give you a moment to think about that. What are the most common obstacles or hurdles that you face in the mission of advancing hope at home? And what do you need? What do you need to advance hope at home? Think about that for a second. You might say, I need a support system. You might say, I need a counselor. You might say, I need someone to help me with my calendar. Or maybe what you need is just to start with one dinner a week with those that you're closest to. And then invite others to join you in this. Invite others to help you with this. So let's talk about some next steps here. Let's get this very practical. Things that you can do in the next 24 hours. Number one, list any obstacles that are seen or unseen that are standing between you and reaching the mission of advancing hope at home. Having a whole and a healthy heart and a great relationship with those people that are closest to you in your home area of life. So clear as many of these obstacles as you can in the next 24 hours, even as simple as put on your calendar the next family dinner that you're going to have. Put on your calendar, set a reminder on your phone to turn off the television at a certain point in time each night. Set a reminder for yourself on your phone to turn off your phone at a certain point in time each night. Set yourself a goal of contacting one personal support person in the next 24 hours and share with them either the obstacles that you've already accomplished and gotten over in the last 24 hours, or share with them one obstacle that you would like their help with in order to advance hope at home. And you also may invite this person to help you brainstorm, what are some other steps that I can take? What are your recommendations? How do you keep hope alive in your home and the relationships that are closest to you? So those are the next steps. And I want you to do as many of these as possible in the next 24 hours. See how many you can clear in the next 24 hours. List the obstacles. Contact a personal support person. And then write down a list of other obstacles that you can start to tackle. And give yourself a deadline, whether it's 48 hours from now, whether it's 72 hours from now, whether it's a week from now. See how many of these steps that you can take in the next day or days or week ahead so that you can begin to advance hope in your home. Thank you again for all that you do for those that are closest to you and your family, whether that's your spouse, whether that's your children, whether those are your grandchildren, your neighbor, your siblings, because we really want to have hope for a better tomorrow and see a better tomorrow for those who are closest to us in our home, because hope begins at home. So thank you again for connecting with us. Thank you again for being with us. If you're already a part of our mailing list and are part of the Hope Connection, then you'll receive information about how to watch this webinar again. And if you'd like, I'd encourage you, please share this with your family, with your friends, and tell them, hey, I want to help make your life even better by helping you advance hope in your home. So watch this webinar, take a look at these suggestions, and start putting them into practice. So thanks again for joining me, everybody, for this time together, and I really hope that's helped you to advance hope at home.